We're ready to go.
I called the Thursday, January 6th, 22 of the Mashpee Conservation Commission. We are on Zoom again. We ask your patience. Our agents are at Town Hall as well. If you're waiting for your hearing, if you would mute your phone until Drew acknowledges you. Is there anyone that has anything on the line that they'd like to proceed with that is not on the agenda at first?
Hi, Tom. This is Brian. Brian's here.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to let you in. I see you. And I just admitted you in.
Okay. I will call the first 6 o'clock hearing, or do you want to have some pre or post agenda first?
Yeah, if it's okay, Tom, if we can get through the administrative approval for 53 James Circle, we have Don Monroe to present for an administrative approval request.
Okay. So go ahead.
Yep. Sure. Don Monroe through the chair, representing Cindy True and Michael Woodcock. This was approved for a vinyl corrugated sheet pile wall off of Johns Pond. The original SE number is 433108. After reviewing with the contractor, the proposed corrugated vinyl panels that we proposed on the original approval. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We discussed it with the contractor, and it makes more sense to go to a flat panel to gain some more room by moving. This will move it back more landward. We would need, though, to put helical anchors into the bank, which we didn't originally have with the corrugated vinyl panels. But we also were going to face the vinyl panels with a wood veneer face. We wouldn't need to do that with the flat panels. We are going to be doing quite a bit of excavation work on the bank because we're removing all those rhododendrons and non-native plants. So the installation of the helical tiebacks is not going to cause any more issues than the tearing out of all the vegetation that's above. So we really would like to see the commission approve this under an administrative, only because the work that we would be doing under the original hasn't really changed. The only addition would be putting in and installing helical anchors, and those are done usually with a small, either hand kind of operated machinery, similar to one of those augers for a post hole digger, or a small machine, Bobcat, with an attachment, so it would still be done from the land side of the project. And since we are going to do an extensive amount of work on the coastal bank under the original proposal, we don't feel that we've added an additional element of concern to the project. As a matter of fact, I think because we're going to be able to move it back roughly 6 inches from the original because of the fact that they're going to be flat-faced instead of corrugated. Taking the corrugation out makes more sense in terms of the resource areas. Any questions? Would be, as you can see, Drew's showing some plans of photographs of what's out there now. That rock has, the stone wall has kind of deteriorated. We are moving that back substantially from where it is now into the bank to try to gain more distance from the existing water line that's there. And using helical anchors in that bank, since we have to excavate all that out anyway, it doesn't really seem like we'll be making more of a mess than what we'll be making just to get that wall out of there. It was approved on the original SE number.
All right, Drew, would you like to make some comment on this?
Sure. Not much really to add to what Dawn had presented. The project scope overall really remains the same for all intents and purposes. This is just a change in anchoring of the bulkhead and the veneer face of the bulkhead and pulling it back slightly from its originally proposed location. And this was previously, the reason this is an administrative approval is because this was issued an order of conditions for essentially the work that was just described with the minor changes. And because all changes are proposed within the work limit, it's not an amendment, it's just an administrative approval because there's really no change to the project scope. So having said that, I don't have any other comments. It still meets all applicable performance standards. It's just something we wanted to bring before the commission for a minor change and modification of the wall and anchoring systems.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments on this?
No.
And any members of the audience?
Nobody has called in to comment on this.
Okay, then would someone make a motion, or do we need to vote on this?
You do need to make a motion to approve the administrative request.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to approve the administrative request. What else do I have to add to that?
53 James Circle.
Okay. For 53 James Circle.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more comments before we vote? Brian?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, and then Brad is here as well. Brad?
Yes.
So the motion carries and it's approved. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Drew.
Drew, do you want to do more here?
I think we can go and move on to the first hearing, 6 o'clock. I will invite Raul Lizardi into the meeting so he can present the next two projects that you see on the agenda.
The first one says it's BSC group, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over that. I'm going to invite Paul Mancuso. 66 Coastline, my apologies. Paul, can you hear us? Are you on the line?
Hey, Andrew. Yep, I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, you can start the presentation.
I'm going to call the 6th hearing for Edward J. Whalen, 66 Coastline Drive, proposed construction of a cabana and covered patio with mitigation planting represented by the BSC group.
Could we get the project plan on there, or I can share my screen?
Yeah. Or do you want to? Yeah. Here's the project plan.
Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, my name is Paul Mancuso. I'm with the BSC Group. I'm here representing Mr. EJ and Miss Lori Whalen for the proposed project at 60 Coastline Drive. So, a little background. The Whalens own the single-family home at 66 Coastline Drive, which you see on the left side of the plan there. And as you can see, there's a lot 1694A and 1694B that was formerly known as 60 Coastline Drive. That lot has been split in half, and the Whalens own the westerly portion, lot 1694A, where the work is proposed. This lot exists as an unvegetated vacant lot. It's basically just a lot of sand. And so the proposed project is to install a cabana and patio as accessory structures to the existing single-family home on 66 Coastline Drive. Initially, the Whalens would have liked to situate the cabana and patio closer to their pool. However, they agreed to move the cabana and patio back outside of the 50-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank. So now the proposed project has no impacts within the 0 to 50-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank, which is the closest resource area on site. And so essentially they just are going to install the cabana and patio within the 50 to 100-foot buffer to top of Coastal Bank. And in the 0 to 50-foot buffer zone of the top of Coastal Bank, they're going to plant that area with American beach grass. However, there is an existing permit for the properties at 66 Coastline Drive, 60 Coastline Drive, 50 and 42 Coastline Drive. There is existing permits to nourish the Coastal Bank and beach. So we're leaving an approximately 15-foot wide access path along the top of the bank for the machinery to access the top of the bank to apply the nourishment sands. As I mentioned, there is an existing permit for that, so we need to leave the access open, and the remaining area outside of that access path with American beach grass to provide stability to the top of the Coastal Bank. So I guess the only other things they're proposing to do on site, they're going to have some landscaping plantings towards the street side of the property, and there will be a limited amount of lawn in the remaining area. But as I said, right now the lot exists as a completely vacant sandy lot, so the beach grass plantings at the near the Coastal Bank will provide stability to the site and overall betterment. That's about the whole project. So I guess at this point, I'd like to take any questions from the commission.
And I could show the commissioners just some photos of the site, if you haven't been out there yet, to take a look. Top left, this is looking at it from basically Coastline Drive itself, looking out into the buffer zone area of the Coastal Bank, leading up to the Coastal Bank back here. Top right photo here just shows the staking of the proposed cabana and patio area. And then other photos looking at the existing buffer zone, the 50-foot buffer zone between the existing property here at 66 Coastline. And this is the area leading up. This is kind of where this easement is supposed to be, in front of 66 Coastline, and then another shot looking down at the area of the buffer zone that fits us all the 50-foot from top of Coastal Bank back towards these developed areas at 42 and 66 Coastline Drive. So one of the things that I discussed with Paul in reviewing this application is, first of all, I'll say that the project meets the performance standards for Coastal Bank because it is set to be within the 50 to 100-foot setback area. As you can see here, this is the 50-foot delineation here from the top of Coastal Bank. So all proposed work lies outside the 50-foot. It is in an entirely pre-disturbed area. There's no removal of vegetation to accommodate the pool and cabana area. But considering that the lots are being combined, a portion of 60 is being combined with 66, I did request that we get a revised nourishment agreement from the Seabury properties, because all of these properties, as Paul had mentioned, are responsible for a percentage of the beach nourishment that is taking place in perpetuity along this Coastal Bank as a result of this project down here, which was meant to stabilize the Coastal Bank. And that comes with yearly annual nourishment of 600 plus cubic yards. So considering that this property is now expanding and incorporating a portion of another lot, that's going to impact the beach nourishment obligation, and we just want to get an updated agreement, an amendment or whatever the plan is to change that agreement so that we have documentation that the beach nourishment obligation will remain consistent as what was put forth in the order of conditions when all of these lots were authorized to be developed and issued orders of conditions. The other issue that Paul and I talked about, and I'll go back to the photographs here of the site just to show you. There's been some pretty inconsistent approach as far as where this easement is being used. And you can see here, this is in front of 66 Coastline. I'm not bringing any of this up to criticize the project itself. It's just things that I happened to notice while doing the site visit, is that when beach nourishment takes place out here, whether it's emergency nourishment or annual nourishment, nourishment as part of the order of conditions, they don't always use the same pathway, and some of this beach grass gets trampled. It grows back, or it gets replanted, and then it gets trampled again. So there needs to be a consistent marking out here to delineate the easement, so that every time beach nourishment takes place, the machinery is taking the exact same path, so that all of this mitigation, the beach grass plantings remain undisturbed every time nourishment activity takes place. So I just wanted to let the commission know that those issues will be addressed with New Seabury Properties, because it's just something that's just been very inconsistent over the years with nourishment. And it is tied into, the 66 coastline with this nourishment here, covering over a portion of the mitigation that was required under the order of conditions. So it's something that we'll take up with New Seabury. We'll make sure we get everything into compliance. I just wanted to FYI to the commission, it's a situation that I noticed that needs to be addressed. As far as the project itself, what is proposed meets the standards for coastal bank. No portion of the project is taking place on the coastal bank, so the bank itself will not be impacted. This is strictly within the buffer zone, and mitigation in the form of beach grass plantings is proposed similar to 42 Coastline Drive, which was issued in order of conditions a few years back. So no other comments.
I just had a quick question for you, Paul. Just to reiterate that the 60 coastline where the project is taking place is essentially being absorbed into 66 coastline, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and do you have the most up-to-date deed on that property?
I do not have a deed. I don't know. I do not have a deed. I know that the Waylands have purchased the property. I do not have that information, but I can also say that I've spoken with, sort of answering Andrew's question as well, or comments. We've been in contact with Roland Bates, who is the head of New Seabury Properties, who I believe he bills each property. He bills the Waylands at 66 Coastline Drive, the owners at 60, 50, and 42 Coastline Drive for annual beach nourishment financial obligations. And they have an agreement set up, which once finalized, we can send Andrew showing that the Waylands are now picking up their piece of the pie for purchasing that half of 60 Coastline Drive for the financial obligation with the beach nourishment. Along with that, we can also get the deed and provide that to conservation, showing that the Waylands now own 66 and that half of 60 coastline.
Okay, great, thank you. Do you want me to read the building and health?
Yeah, a couple of other comments.
Yep, and I'll just read the building and health comments into record. Building states that the subject property is located in New Seabury Special Permit Area, and it meets a 50-foot wetland setback, and the health department states that the property is tied into New Seabury's wastewater treatment facility.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. Could you repeat that, if that was a question?
No, it wasn't a question. She was just reading comments from the building commissioner and the Board of Health.
All right. Are there anyone waiting in the waiting room for comments from the public?
Nobody's called in for, we have a separate line for call-ins for public comment, and nobody has called in on this one.
That's fine. Commissioners?
Would ask Drew as to whether we need to amend the order of conditions so that we're taking into consideration all these vague points in regards to the access path, the nourishment agreement, and so forth, or do we let it rock? Mr. whatever his name was, who's the head of New Seabury Development, who will handle it.
Yeah, I would ask that we be given an opportunity to speak with Roland from New Seabury Properties to figure out what the best way to reflect these changes, given the incorporation of the additional half of the lot, and give us time to figure that out and figure out what the best way to get that into compliance and up to date.
Do we need to condition the request, the NOI?
No, I don't feel it needs conditioning in regards to what I just described in terms of the access, width and marking of the beach nourishment access. And what we would do is request an amendment to the beach nourishment agreement to reflect this additional obligation of beach nourishment for these property owners. I don't see there's any need to amend because that agreement already exists. It's already part of the order conditions. It would just be receiving an amended agreement.
No need to condition it on the access path and the stomping of the seagrass.
Again, I don't think it's necessary to condition the access path. It's a separate issue that we're going to follow up with New Seabury on.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
I have just a question. And they might not do it yet, but did Natural Heritage weigh in on this? I thought it
yes.
might have been within their area.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, thank you for bringing that up. Portion of the property is within the mapped natural heritage estimated habitat for rare and endangered species, and we received just yesterday a determination from them that this project would result in no take of any protected species.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have some comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion from someone.
We move with regard to the application of Edward J. Whalen, 66 Coastline Drive, to close and issue the request.
Your second?
I'll second that.
And we're voting. Brett?
Yes?
Brian?
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah.
Paul?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Did you catch that, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Okay, and I'll follow up with you in regards to correspondence with New Seabury Properties and clarifying those issues.
Yeah. I guess I can also mention, when I spoke with Roland Bates, he was suggesting, which I agree, maybe we could all meet out there with the contractor, Pastoral Excavation, just to go over with them, because we've already permitted a house at 50 Coastline Drive, just so they know the access. We can maybe install some kind of marker so they know where they can't be driving their machinery and where they need to stay out of. But yeah, we can definitely follow up with that, and I appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Sounds good.
Drew, do you want to go to the next hearing?
Yep.
So I'll call the 603 hearing of John Cumming, Simons Narrow LLC, 353 Simons Narrow Road, proposed construction and maintenance of a single-family dwelling, Title V SIP system and landscaping, hardscaping, application, representing Cape and Islands Engineering at Lizardi.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. Drew, if you could, in the audience, I believe we have John Cumming, who's the applicant, and Mark McCarthy, who's the architect on the project. If you could promote those two from the public waiting room.
Can you say those names again, Raul?
John Cumming
Okay.
and Mark McCarthy.
I don't see either one of them in the waiting room, Raul.
Say Mike Picard?
No, Mike
All
McCarthy.
right, I'll just proceed in case they're in the audience with their phones, and the commissioners have any particular questions. Maybe they can answer if I can't answer.
Excuse me, guys. Hi. I just wanted to say, I'm Mark McCarthy. I'm here on the audio, on the telephone, and I'm watching the hearing on television on YouTube. So I do have the visual, and I'm here on the call if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I see John now, too. I'm going to admit.
This is John Cumming. I'm now outside in the meeting. Thank you.
John, it sounds like your computer audio is on. You need to mute that. Or someone's computer audio is on because we're getting feedback.
All right, so I'll begin with the presentation. So yeah, this project is 353 Simons Narrow Road, which is a vacant parcel along the shores of Shoestring Bay. The property is residentially zoned, and the project at hand is to develop a single-family residence. The project is within 100 foot of several wetland resources. Namely, we have land under the ocean, which is Shoestring Bay. We have a salt marsh bordering Shoestring Bay. We have a BVW. We also have land subject to coastal storm flowage, which goes all the way up to elevation 12. And then we have the coastal bank. The coastal bank in this case is a twofold coastal bank. We have the DEP State Coastal Bank, and for a portion of the property, I think the northern half of the coastal bank, the Mashpee Coastal Bank increases by a foot. So we have a bump up on the coastal bank by a foot on the northern part because the slope above the 12-foot elevation continues for greater than 10%. So the project is to develop this property with a single-family residence. There's approximately 20,384 square feet of upland on this project, and this development is contained within the uppermost upland portion of that property in 8,100 square feet of the lot, which is roughly 40% of the upland. There is a 50-foot buffer to the coastal bank, and that 50-foot buffer occupies 8,350 square feet of the upland. So that's roughly another 42% of the upland. That's the 50-foot buffer zone. The project here for the proposed house, what we're doing is trying to pin the house towards the north west corner of the lot, avoiding as much as possible getting into the buffer zones. But as I will explain a little later, we are clearing some parts of the buffer zone. The house is a 5-bedroom dwelling, so we start with the location of the septic system, which is at the far corner of the street corner of the property in a kind of L shape or hockey stick shape underneath the driveway and slightly in the lawn areas. The septic has to be 10 feet away from the property lines, and that's what we have for that septic. Then the house has to be 20 feet away for the full foundation, 10 feet away for the crawl space, not the crawl space, I'm sorry, for the slab of the garage. So those are the setbacks that kind of pin the house at this location, and for the most part, also the 50-foot buffer. Of the 50-foot buffer, the back left corner of the garage is right at 50 feet from the top of the Mashpee Coastal Bank. That's the closest point to the coastal bank that we have. On the outside of that garage, what we're proposing is footpath, pervious footpath that goes from the front driveway to the back stairs on the deck. So that occupies a piece of area which is within the 50-foot buffer zone. But in addition to just create this path, because of the construction of the structure, we are proposing a 10-foot wide strip around this corner and along the side of the garage, which is within the 50-foot buffer. That practically clears 650 square feet of the 50-foot buffer. That 650 feet is of the roughly 8% of the 8,350-foot buffer that we have. So we feel that although it's 650 square feet, in terms of the 50-foot buffer that we have on this property, is rather a small percentage of that area. In compensation for this, and because we're proposing to clear 50-foot portion of the 50-foot buffer, we have to ask for a waiver. So this application for this single-family development is tied into a waiver of Regulation 25 and regulations to the naturally vegetated buffer strip of the town of Mashpee. The town of Mashpee requires a 50-foot buffer. In a case-by-case basis, it could be reduced at the opinion and consideration of the board. If we propose mitigation that the board feels is adequate for protecting the values of the Street intention is to filter out pollutants from any development to reaching the resource areas. The main resource area here being the wetlands and Shoestring Bay. So the main objective here is water quality. So we believe that reducing the 50-foot buffer to a 40-foot buffer and occupying about 8% of the 50-foot buffer and adding a denitrifying septic system provides a better water quality than if you have a fully 50-foot buffer strip on this property. But of course, we want to take any feedback that the commissioners may have in case this waiver seems to be troublesome for the commission. Maybe we can revisit the development with the homeowner or the developer and see what could be done. But we feel that this 8% encroachment into this 50-foot buffer and providing a denitrifying septic system provides a better water quality or an equivalent to a fully 50-foot buffer without any denitrifying septic system on the site. If the site is proposed that it meets the 50-foot buffer without altering the 50-foot buffer and a septic system that's not denitrifying, we feel that it is more impactful to the environment than what we're proposing in this location. The buffer that we're encroaching to is actually the one to the east on the picture right now, and that's the coastal bank that's closest to the development. At the bottom of that coastal bank, there is more development because we have the cul-de-sac for the road that's at this location. So it's not that this is the 50-foot buffer to a coastal bank that's adjacent to another wetland, such is the case for the south portion of the coastal bank. We have a coastal bank that's adjacent to a BVW, that's adjacent to the salt marsh, and then that's adjacent to the shores of Shoestring Bay. This other coastal bank to the north is adjacent to the road. So we feel that we have good protection in this side of this coastal bank. So we believe that that 10-foot encroachment into that 50-foot buffer could be viewed as a minor encroachment. The case-by-case waiver criteria are usually threefold. The first one is how compelling the need is. So the compelling on the need is that for this particular house and the particular size of the septic system, this is the location that best fits the development. And to be able to access around this portion of the garage, we have to encroach into that 50-foot buffer. Is the relaxing standard minor, moderate, or major? I believe that the 8% that we are encroaching into, it could be considered minor, but that's the opinion of the commissioners. And to what degree the compensatory mitigation measures result in a significant enhancement to the benefit of the resource areas. And we believe that the denitrifying septic system that we're voluntarily putting in this development to compensate for that encroachment in the buffer zone, it's a better protection to the water quality in this environment, being that it's Shoestring Bay, land containing shellfish, which is actually one of the resources that I failed to mention early on. The area is believed to be shellfish habitat, although it's not. I think the area is closed for shell fishing. But if there's any questions, I'll pass it on to Drew and his opinion, and we'll get any feedback from the commissioners and see which steps we take after this hearing. Thanks.
Okay, Drew?
So I provided all the commissioners with my comments on this. I do understand that the proposal to get into the 50-foot is relatively minor in scope, and they have offered up a denitrifying septic system to offset that incursion. My biggest concern is that getting into allowing incursions into a 50-foot buffer, particularly on undeveloped lots, in this situation where mitigation is offered up in the form of a denitrifying septic system, it really doesn't meet, in my opinion, the demonstration of compelling need when a perfectly viable alternative would be to reduce the scope of impact on this project to keep the project out of the 50-foot buffer. I think the 50-foot buffer is the standard of that, and the importance of that goes up dramatically when you're looking at an undeveloped lot. And all efforts should be made to stay out of that 50-foot buffer. If that means shrinking the footprint of the house or the degree of disturbance around the house, then that's what should be done, in my opinion. So as far as a demonstration of compelling need, it's really based on what the homeowner wants as far as the size and scope of the house. There's no hardship, in my opinion, that's been presented as justification for getting into the 50-foot buffer. As far as the comparison of having a full 50-foot buffer in the absence of an IA system, the town is looking at town-wide sewering eventually, so I really don't see that as a legitimate argument. So that's just my opinion. I don't agree. I don't recommend that the commission grant this waiver. And I would recommend that the applicant go back and look at ways to keep this disturbance outside the 50-foot entirely.
Do we listen to the commissioners first, Drew, or do you want to listen to the
Caitlin has some other.
audience?
Sorry, Caitlin has some other comments.
Okay.
Board of Health and Building Commissioner.
Building comments state that they determine the project does not fall under the jurisdiction of ZBA. There's concerns about road CC for Mashpee Fire Department and emergency response. And the Health Department states that the design plans have been submitted for Board of Health review and approval. Floor plan to be reviewed upon submission to the Building Department.
Okay. Do we want to listen to the audience, Drew, or should it be the commissioners next?
Don't think there's anyone, no one has called in to comment on this, yeah.
Commissioners?
I would support Drew's comments. I think that the piece of land is a tricky one, but at the same time, you know, there's enough things that need to be covered in this particular project that I think they need to respect the 50-foot setback. And with the amount of land that they're dealing with, I would think that they could find places here and there that the problem could be corrected. They're a little creative, and maybe they could fix the problem themselves.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, I agree. I didn't mean to, but I was almost chuckling because if the area is closed to shellfishing, it's because the water quality is too poor for shellfish to be taken from there. So we need to protect the buffer as best we can. And a denitrifying system, I don't think removes the phosphorus. I could be mistaken, but I think we learned that at our last joint meeting. So, while it's great, I mean, it's still a whole other system on this body of water that is struggling.
And the piece of property has a sewerage capability attached to that lot in that area of the town. I don't understand why they haven't found a way to connect their problem to the availability of a septic system.
Paul, do you have any comments?
I certainly agree with Drew. I think any incursion into the 50-foot buffer is not acceptable. And per our last meeting, you know how I feel about new Title V septic systems. Obviously, a nitrogen system should be presented because of the problems we have with the water. And I agree with Alex. I mean, there's a reason why there's no shellfishing in Shoestring Bay. You know, we have some serious water problems, and whenever we look at new construction, I think we have to really look at it through a fine lens.
Raul, given commissioners far, 3 commissioners and out of 5, would you like to continue this and go back and try to design this before we go any further?
Right, it looks like the majority right now present, it's not in favor of the encroachment or the waiver. So I will have to go back to the developer and figure out how we can try to eliminate the waiver request. But a couple of items that were mentioned. Shoestring Bay is definitely in bad shape. But phosphorus is not the constituent here that's causing most of the problem, or the problem. Shoestring Bay being a saltwater estuary, it's nitrogen, the one that's causing the problems. So that's why a denitrifying septic system would be the appropriate approach in terms of septic system. The phosphorus removal is mostly for freshwater ponds, lakes, and inland wetlands, where the phosphorus really becomes the main concern in comparison to denitrifying or to nitrogen. But then there was a comment mentioned that I'm not completely familiar. Did I hear that this area is planned to be sewered? I just did not know that information.
Yeah, if you look at the plan for storing, this area all the way down to Santuit is in those early phases eventually, yes.
Okay.
But I concern you should address the concerns of the commissioners, Andrew, which was the 50-foot buffer. It's not the denice system. So they're asking you to go back and not remove that portion of the 50-foot buffer. So I think we should just move on to, if you'd like to move for continuing the hearing, we could vote for that.
Yeah, I'd rather ask for a continuance from the board to the next available hearing. Actually, no, if the next one is next week, I would probably rather have it in 2 weeks from now.
It's actually January 27th, Raul. It's January 27th.
Yeah, I'd rather ask for that continuance.
Okay, that is our next meeting.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to continue this? And what time would that be, Drew?
6:09 on January 27th.
Can I have a motion for that?
Move that the application of John Cummings, Simon Narrows LLC at 353 Simon Narrows Road be continued to January 27th at 6:03. I think that's the
6:09.
6:09.
Sorry.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Voting, Brian?
Yes.
Alex?
Yeah.
Brad?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. So motion carries to continue the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll open the 606 hearing for John Cummings, Simon's Narrows LLC, for 0 Simon's Narrows Road, proposed installation of shed and fence. Representing again from Cape and Islands Engineering is Raul Lazardi.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lazardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant, John Cummings. This subject property is right next door to the project we just continued. It doesn't have an address, so it's 0 Simon's Narrows Road, which is the end of the road. Currently, it is developed with a cul-de-sac for the road, and it has a pier that is shared by 2 properties, which are 353 Simon's Narrows and number 1 Mitswan Road. So the project here is to propose a storage shed for dry storage of equipment and watercraft to carry on and off to the pier and into the waters of Shoestring Bay. The size of this proposed shed is 20 by 12. This is similar to a shed that we proposed and got approvals for at Mashpee Neck Marina. It's going to be proposed to be supported on sonotubes. So there's sonotubes underneath the structure. So the structure is going to be off of the ground. The bottom of the structure, what we're proposing to do is remove the existing grass. Currently, this area is all grass. So the 20 by 12 plus the 4 by 6 ramp will be stripped of the topsoil. We'll put crushed stone underneath the pad, underneath the shed, and then place the shed on top of that. We're going to continue to use the existing limit of work. There's a silt fence, and in front of that silt fence, there's a crushed stone trench. We looked proposed to do. We probably have to lift the portions that have dropped down with the weather, but we believe the limited work as it is still reusable. The existing boulder, what we're proposing to do, because of the rotation or the way people travel and go around a cul-de-sac on a counterclockwise, that boulder we're proposing to remove it because that becomes the front left corner of the shed and put it just off of the right corner because that's the location where movement of vehicles approach the shed, so that boulder will protect the shed from many vehicles. The area to the left of the shed is an existing drainage that was installed, I believe, a year and a half or 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So that drainage system we're proposing to remain in its current location. The shed from roof runoff will shed off the shed into the ground and eventually follow the path into that grass swale. In terms of what could be done for mitigation, I was in touch with Drew, and I believe everybody has seen his recommendation. There is a lot of grass area in this location, so there is the possibility for reducing some of the grass around here and maybe installing some shrubs, woody shrubs, native shrubs, to kind of buffer up some of this land. We are proposing also a split rail fence around the shed. With time, the shed will need maintenance, so we propose a split rail fence. It won't impede wildlife from moving back and forth, but it will provide kind of like a limit of where people can walk around the shed. On the back, we're proposing about 8 feet. On the side, we're proposing about 2 feet. And on the side for where the existing limit of work is, we're proposing to keep it at the minimum 1 foot. The side towards the existing drainage system, the drainage system being a depression, that prevents people from actually using the area for anything else. But none of this area within that split rail fence is proposed for storage. All the storage we're proposing is within the confines of this building. Now, people could say that this shed could be located further away from the resource areas, and which is true. There's a lot more upland behind all this drainage system. But if we were to do something further out to provide a greater setback to the resources, we will have to provide a path. And all this watercraft or equipment that's being transported from the pier to the shed will actually be occupying more space by people walking over to a different location for the shed. This location, it puts the shed about 35 feet from the end of the dock, and all they have to do is just walk up the ramp 4 feet into the shed, get their equipment or the watercraft, walk back out to the street, and then walk to the pier without having to do any new walkways or pathways to get their equipment. So we believe this is the ideal location for a storage shed. And any recommendation, any questions the commissioners may have, I'll be happy to answer.
Drew?
So just Raul had touched on this in the presentation, that part of my feedback for this, or my comments, were that, well, first of all, I'll just address the shed, that it is being proposed over an area, which you'll see in the images here. This was a reclaimed cul-de-sac that received a permit from the Conservation Commission to reestablish this paved area and then create this drainage swale at the bottom for more efficient stormwater runoff, because I didn't capture a photo of it, but this top left photo here, this road behind where the shot was taken is all slopes down to this cul-de-sac area, so it was in need of addressing stormwater runoff, which was since presented to the commission and approved. And you can see that here. These are the stormwater swales that were approved to capture the runoff coming down Simon's Narrow. So just to give a background about how this area was established, it's been a cul-de-sac for decades. It just became overgrown and then received a permit to reestablish it. And part of that also involved improving the stormwater capture, which is why you see these grass areas here. So in reading through the project narrative, there was no offering of mitigation just due to what was a perceived lack of opportunity to have mitigation in this area, but I did point out that these areas of grass along the edge of the cul-de-sac could be planted up to enhance the buffer zone to the BVW with some native shrubs. And you've got, just go back to the plan just to kind of, show these areas. So here, where the grass all along here, these are all good candidate areas for shrub plantings to enhance the buffer zone to the BVW, which you see here. As far as the shed itself, I don't see any impact. I know it's inside the 50, but it's in a pre-disturbed, legally altered area. So I don't see any impact from the shed. Particularly, another aspect is that it's proposed to be built off-site and then placed on sonotubes with a good drainage plan around it. So I don't see any issues as far as impact to the performance standards for BVW, but I do see opportunity for mitigation. And I had suggested that to Earl. It seemed like they were in agreement. Just need to come up with a sufficient planting plan to kind of take advantage of these grass shoulder areas outside the cul-de-sac. So that was my my comments in regards to this particular application.
Okay, anyone from the audience?
No one from the audience. I'll just read a couple more comments into record from the Board of Health and Building. Building states that they determine the project does fall under ZBA jurisdiction. No principal structure for storage accessory to. Same road concerns as 353 Simons Narrow. And the Health Department states that the shed is reportedly going to be used for boating accessories. To clarify if gas or fuels were going to be kept in there, which they should not be. No other comments. I just also had a question. Should the mitigation plan be it should be based on the mitigation chart as far as encroachment into the 50-foot, as
Yes.
far as the...
I did talk to Raul about that, and he indicated that the chart would provide a square footage that just would exceed the available area. So my suggestion would be to fill it in to the greatest extent possible and take advantage of these grass areas outside of the swales to plant up and establish as much of a buffer as possible, if that's acceptable to the commission. So it wouldn't be, using the chart and the calculation numbers based on the proposed square footage of the shed, there simply wouldn't be enough room for the calculated amount of mitigation that would be required using that mitigation calc chart. So it's up to the commission to decide if you think that that's adequate. Again, it's not anything that I see as impacting the performance standards in an area that's entirely and legally pre-disturbed, and getting additional mitigation to increase the buffer zone I see as a net environmental benefit.
Okay, commissioners?
I have some questions. I'm a little confused when I look at this. The Mitchell's Landing, when was that project done? Like, within the last year?
I think it was within the last 3 years, I want to say, 2 to 3 years.
20 years ago.
Yeah, if you look at the plan, the drainage well were installed in 2019. I believe the permit was issued also early in 2019.
Yeah.
And who was that permit issued to? Was that to the same property owner, or who was
It is the same applicant. It is the same applicant. The property ownership is under the estate of John Cummins' late father. So it was issued for that. The drainage system is going to be maintained by the two owners of number 1 Mute Swan and 353 Simons Narrow.
Okay. So the area was disturbed to create this landing, improve drainage from this landing that was created, and then now because that was disturbed, Drew, it's considered pre-disturbed area for the shed?
No, Mitchell's Landing has been developed for many, many decades, not in 2019.
Right.
There used to be this pier, and there used to be a railway Marine Railway. I don't know if it was the Army or which armed forces was using it, but this was developed many years ago. So the road has been in place for, I'm not sure how many decades, but it has been in place. What Drew was relating to is that it was never maintained, so the overgrowth on the shoulders were covering the pavement. So the pavement was resurfaced and the areas were cleaned up. There was no drainage at the time. All of the drainage before the improvements with the drainage swales, all the drainage was going straight into Shoestring Bay at the end of this cul-de-sac.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just look at the aerials and I just see a lot more vegetation in the aerials than what I'm seeing out there. So, yeah, I would stand by Drew's comments to add mitigation within the shoulders, if possible, add more vegetation.
Right, and if I could also add, and I talked to Drew about this, that permit from a couple of years ago also included the Phragmites eradication. So in some of the older aerials, you're going to see Phragmites in the area. The eradication process is a 3-year process, so they started with that. So a lot of the areas that seem to be clear is because the Phragmites is not there. So we have to give time for the natural native saltmarsh species to take place, and so that starts to become more natural and greener. But yeah, a lot of the land right now looks pretty bare.
That's great that the Phragmites is done then. Is it, so that was 2019. Is that still going? I mean, Phragmites can take 10 years to eradicate. 3 years isn't typically all of it. I mean, I'm so happy that they took it on. I'm just curious.
Right. So the program is for a 3-year monitoring process. The order of condition, I believe, is still open, although you can close the order of condition and still have the monitoring of the Phragmites and eradicate anything that grows. But I think the target was to have an 80% eradication. If you went to the site today, when I was last there, I did not see any live Phragmites plants coming through. But maybe in a year, you would see a couple of clumps coming through, and they'll have to come back and treat that.
Is there a plan to do that?
Right. So the approval is for a 3-year process.
Right. No, I know you just had mentioned that they would have to come back if anything else grew in. Are they planning on I know the approval's for 3 years, but are they planning to keep going with it?
Right. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the spring, and they come back a second time in the fall. So it's like twice in a year to review what's happening. If anything is growing, they go ahead and treat it.
Okay. Thank you for adding that. No.
Any other commissioners' thoughts? I just had a question, Raul. You said water sports craft. That means what, like kayaks and that kind of stuff?
Right, like I don't really know the technical words for all of them, but boogie boards or things like that. One of the things that we have to inform the applicant is that this is for dry storage. There is no storage of like fuel for boats or anything like that. This is just water question for transport or anything like that. No, well, everything is going to be dry and just related with the use of the pier and their boating activities.
Okay. Any other commissioners' comments?
Is it any intention of, or is the intention to keep this as a private space for the coming family?
So the use of this shed as well as the pier, it's going to be for the two owners of the two properties that have the rights on this lot, which are whoever happens to be the owner of one Mute Swan and the owner of 353 Simons Narrows. Those are the two property owners that have rights over the use of this development in this parcel. Currently, both lots are vacant, but if those lots get sold to someone outside of the family, then those are the owners that will have the rights.
So it's only two homeowners that will have the right to use this turnaround, if you wish, at the base.
Right.
Okay, think there'll be a lot of court action once these lots fill up, but that's just an opinion. Not out of jurisdiction, so I'll be quiet.
Anyone else have any comments? Drew, does this need to be conditioned in any way?
Yes, I would recommend if you're to make a motion to close an issue on this, that there be a condition of submission of a mitigation planting plan prior to issuance of the order of conditions.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion with that condition for a mitigation plan?
I would move that we close an issue in regard to the application of John Cumming, Simons Narrow LLC at 0 Simons Narrows Road, but with a condition that mitigation plan must be submitted to the commission.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, voting. Brian?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raul.
So we'll go on to the 609 hearing of Paul C. Daniele, trustee, 225 Monomoskoye Road, proposed septic system upgrade, representative from Spink Design.
So before the gentleman presents this presentation, he's here in person because he had to go to Board of Health next door. The meeting room is split. So he's going to speak. You're not going to see him visually, and I'll show the images as he presents this project. You just want to speak kind of loudly because this is the speaker here, so I should be able to hear you.
I can speak pretty loudly.
So you give your name for the record first.
My name is Thomas Root. I'm a civil engineer, and this is a septic system repair. The owner of the property, Mr. Daniele, did not want a Title V inspection done because he knew he was going to fail. So we just went ahead and did the design, and it's already been approved by the Board of Health. Glenn already told me that. And so I actually did a redesign of the system so as to maintain the 5-foot separation of groundwater, which I did. And in order to make that happen, we're going to have to bump up the plumbing in the basement a little bit so as to make all the elevations and slopes and everything work out. So it's a pretty straightforward septic design. So we are putting it in the backyard so as to keep it even further away from the water, because this strip of land, there's water on both sides, but where the system is now, currently in the front yard, it's actually closer to the Great River. So we're proposing to put it in the backyard, so it'll be a little bit further away from the ocean. It's a standard Title V system, and that's the reason we don't have an IA unit, because we were able to maintain the 5-foot separation from the bottom of the soil absorption system all the way down to the high groundwater table. And that high groundwater table is accurate because we went back there and we did the soil testing at high tide, which the particular day we were out there, the high tide was at 2:05 in the afternoon. And we dug this test hole at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we hit groundwater right at 9 feet. And Glenn was there to witness it.
So just to show the commissioner some images of the site, this is your resource area for this particular location is land subject to coastal storm flow. It is landlocked, so it's more than 100 feet away from any other wetlands. You can see here from the GIS image, this is the highlighted parcel, and then you've got Great River and the associated fringe wetlands here. So it's more than 100 feet of separation from that wetland, but it is entirely within the flood zone, which brings it into jurisdiction. And you can see that here, just standing at the property, looking across the Monomoskoye Road. That's Great River in the background. I did have just a quick question. This picture here on the top right, are these trees have to be removed to accommodate the leach field, or?
No.
No, so they're gonna remain?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to cut down any trees.
Okay, no trees cut down. Okay, good. So obviously it meets the standard for a lot of this size within land subject to coastal storm flow. There will be no disturbance to existing natural vegetation. And I would recommend a negative determination, which is a good thing. It's a good thing.
Is there anyone waiting in the room, in the audience? Caitlin, do you have any comments?
No, I'll just read the Board of Health comments into record. The property is restricted to existing 2 bedrooms. Design plans are pending BOH review. Deed restriction required for construction of undersized SAS. Floor plan to be reviewed upon submission to the building department. Rodent inspection and asbestos inspection required to meet Board of Health demo permit requirements. Septic system upgrade. But
Okay, commissioners, does anyone have any comments on this upgrade of Title V? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to close this for a negative determination?
Hearing none, I would move for a negative determination in regards to the application of Paul Daniele, trustee of 225 Monomoskoye Road, for a proposed system upgrade.
Can I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, voting. Brian?
Yeah.
Alex?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
So I'm going to call the 612 hearing for Flat Pond Homeowners Association, 3 Grapefield Landing, New Seabury Dunes Golf Course, proposed treatment and eradication of aquatic invasive species. Representing them is Solitude Lake Management.
it's continued.
So this has been requested to be continued. Do you have the?
Yep, to January 27th at 6:06 p.m.
All right, would someone make a motion to continue this?
I would move for a continuation on the application of Flat Pond Homeowners Association, 3 Grapefield Landing, is in the Seabury Dunes Golf Course, to January, did you say 27th?
Correct.
6:09?
6:06.
6:06 p.m.
6 p.m. Thank you.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Voting Paul?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Brian?
Yeah.
Brad?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you. I'm calling the 6:15 hearing of 23 Ocean Bluff LLC, 23 Ocean Bluff Drive, proposed installation of pool and associated hardscaping and mitigation plantings. Representing them is Sudbury Design Group. This was continued twice from 11/18 and 12/19 for revised plans showing reduced pool footprint and narrative. Please go ahead.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mike Coutu. I'm with Sudbury Design Group. I'm here with my associate, Mike Picard, with the landscape architects on the project. We were before the commission at the prior hearing, and we got feedback from the commission, and we took it back to our clients, and we've worked to come up with a plan that we think addressed a lot of your concerns. As you can see, the pool used to run perpendicular to the house and the coastal bank, and we have rotated the pool and moved it a little closer to the house. And in essence, we were originally, in the original plan, we were 5 foot 3 inches from the top of the coastal bank. We're now 14 foot 7 to the structure of the pool. which has given us an opportunity for additional mitigation between the pool and the bank. It also keeps the shallow end of the pool on the towards the side where the big white oak is, and it's a little further away from the big white oak, which will minimize any impact on that tree. We have, by nature of the design and the way we've done it, we've come up with a decrease in impervious area from what was previously proposed. We have about 109 square feet less of impervious. To qualify for the waiver, it was requested that we get a doctor's note. We've submitted that as part of our packet to the commission. We were also asked to get a confirmation that the delineation has not changed since the engineer's plan, where the delineations were established just over 3 years ago. We submitted a note from the engineer that the delineations have not changed. So that certification was done. We have received our DEP number, and we've adjusted the mitigation. It came to our attention via Drew that the prior owner of the property, who had done a project that had an order of conditions and a certificate of compliance, in that area that you see just to the south of the pool, that sort of magenta colored area, that area was originally part of mitigation for their prior project. But when our owners bought the property, that did not exist. It was grass. So somewhere between when that was signed off and our owners bought it, so we were completely unaware of that. So what we've done is we've looked at the mitigation that was previously approved. We've matched it in terms of square foot with a planting of native material. We did change, however, some of the material, because what was previously proposed in there was bayberry and viburnum, which, although nice native species, they would have, as they matured, completely blocked a $5 million view that our owners just paid to see the sound. So we have proposed a slightly different mitigation for that area, but we've put that mitigation back into reality and not part of our calculation. So it's over and above what we're calculating for our current project. So that's where we are. I think that is pretty much, I think we addressed a lot of the questions and comments and concerns of the commission, and I'm here to answer any other questions you might have. Drew?
I did have a question on looking at the previously required mitigation area, low bush blueberry, and either Mike can answer this. Is that an appropriate species given this coastal environment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it'll do well there?
Yeah, I do. Yep, and we've used them in the past.
So you all have my comments on this that I submitted prior to the hearing, and I do believe that they have addressed, the consultants have addressed all of the issues that were raised at the previous hearing, which was increasing the setback from the top of the coastal bank, shrinking the footprint of the pool, to have that opportunity to provide a buffer where really currently one doesn't exist at the property, providing the medical justification from the doctor, which I'm sure you all have seen, I would hope you have seen so far, and let's see what else here.
Keeping up the delineation?
Oh, and yeah, and confirming that the delineation from Cape and Islands is still valid for the coastal bank and coastal dune areas. Not much more to add for it. I do recommend that if the commission is to approve this project, and I do believe that the project meets the performance standards in place for coastal bank and coastal dune, that they require a 3-year signed contract to monitor and maintain all mitigation plantings with a qualified professional. as part of a motion. No other comments. Caitlin, if you have any.
Caitlin, is anyone waiting, or do you have any other comments to share with us?
No one has called in. The Board of Health states that the property is connected to New Seabury wastewater treatment plant. And Building Department states that this project is on the ZB agenda for January 12th under 174-33 setback to wetlands. Property located in New Seabury in New Seabury Special Permit District. I'm just curious, did you submit the delineation from Cape and Islands, the confirmation of those delineations via email? I just didn't have it in my possession.
Maybe Mike can speak to that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Caitlin, I think Mike was mistaken. I believe Cape and Island actually verbally spoke with you over the phone about confirming the delineation, or someone in the Conservation Department.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, Commissioners, any comments?
I have a comment. I do not like the idea of Rosa rugosa being a mitigation planting. I don't know if we've approved that in the past before my time here.
It's pasture rose.
Pasture rose.
Yeah, what's the difference?
It's a native species versus Rosa rugosa. It's not as aggressive. It's more suited to this type of habitat.
Okay, when I just Googled it, I had never heard of that one before, and when I just Googled it, Rosa rugosa was what came up. So maybe I just need to get the other species. But so am I to be correct in saying that the $5 million view is the entire property being the view, like not just a view corridor? Because Viburnum and the...
It's a view corridor, and under the oak, we've got more substantial planting around the oak and on that side, and it's a fairly tight, narrow property to begin with. It's a fairly narrow view out. There's pines to the west, and then the big oak to the left, and there's pines on the bank, and the view corridor is pretty much, if you see the little bump out in the house, it's pretty much straight out.
That's raised up though from the. I mean, so it would be from like in the pool, you wouldn't be able to see over it Viburnum, but from the house, you would be able to see over it, correct?
Well, Arrowwood Viburnum gets 12 feet tall. It would make no sense to plant a lawn.
I have not seen them 12 feet tall.
Yeah, Viburnum gets big.
I would say that, Mike, a Viburnum and Bayberry in this area, all you have to do is look around. They don't get to that height in this type of environment. They're right on the coast.
Yep.
They experience high winds and salt. So I don't agree that these plantings would be impeding any view. Additionally, this property has no vista pruning permit in place right now, so they cannot conduct pruning.
Right.
And illegal pruning has taken place in the past. There's evidence of top trees on the bank. So I would say that I would encourage that the original mitigation be required and not substituted with pasture rose and low bush blueberry, because I don't think that it's going to be a concern.
Could I suggest, Drew, that we would come back to you with a revised planting and make that part of the order?
Yes.
Yeah, we can work that out.
Great, thank you.
I don't disagree with you that the winds do stymie the growth.
Yeah, you can see it out there. It's evident. Yeah.
Did the original mitigation plan the original mitigation plan called for viburnums, correct?
And Bayberry.
It did.
Yeah.
And Bayberry. And so we're
going to reinstitute that.
But I will say, Drew, if you look at that original plan that was approved, and Mike, maybe you can speak to it because you remember the numbers. The square footage there was like 360-something square feet. The amount of plant material you'd have to plant it literally ball to ball. You couldn't fit the amount of mitigation planting that was approved for there. So I'd like to review that with you. I mean, obviously, if we're going to mitigate, we want to mitigate correctly.
Sure.
So I think it needs a little attention. I wouldn't just assume on the part of the commission that we do exactly the way it was, because quite frankly, a horticultural standpoint, it made no sense.
Sure, understood.
Just a quick question too. Do you anticipate that the disturbance needed to install the pool will go right up to the coastal bank, as in about 0 feet project disturbance?
No, we've put the limit of work at the top of the bank because we're going to be doing the planting. But being, 14 feet back, there will be an overdig of a few feet beyond the pool, but that's it.
Do you have that figure, or at least a good estimate of what the figure of the closest disturbance to the top of the coastal bank would be for the installation of the pool?
Actual disturbance for the construction of the pool probably won't be any closer than about 10 feet to the top of the bank. Would you agree, Mike? We only need about a 4 or 5 foot.
I would agree with that.
8 to 10 feet off of the bank.
So 8 feet. 8 feet would be the best answer.
Yeah, I think pretty reasonable. Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, by turning the pool, what it did was our deep end used to be on the bank side, which, actually, take that back. Yeah, it was. Our deep end was on the bank end of the pool, so it was a deeper excavation close to the bank. By turning the pool, that deeper excavation gets a lot further away from the bank. So not only are we further away, but the deep excavation is further away. So, not that it's a deep pool, but.
Right.
Comfortable that you can get the excavators in there down the side of this home? Just walking at the other place, boy, it is tight.
It is tight, and we're going to have to, if you can see, we're going to have to take out a couple of air conditioners probably temporarily to do this work. And this work is going to be done. We did a pool right next door at 25 Ocean Bluff, and literally we had the smallest mini you could ever use, and a lot of hand work. Every piece of stone was carried back there by hand. It's a labor-intensive job, no question. There's nothing big that's going to get in there.
Right.
Any other commissioner comments? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion conditioning this with a revised plan for mitigation and also a 3-year contract for maintenance of that mitigation planting?
I would move the approval. Let's see. That's what I'm doing. We move for a close and issue in regards to 23 Ocean Bluff LLC, 23 Ocean Bluff Drive, that we condition based upon returning to the original mitigation plan that was approved on this particular land, and that we have a contract to oversee the mitigation for a period of 3 years into the future.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right, voting. Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Yep. All right. We'll move on to the 618 hearing for Anne Marie Peters, 706 Old Barnstable Road, proposed septic system upgrade. Representing is Horsley Witten Group. This is an RDA.
Okay, and I'm just inviting Amy Ball from Horsley Witten Group into the meeting, and Ben Woolman. So they should be joining shortly. Amy or Ben, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let Ben take this one.
All right.
Yes, hi, Drew.
Hey, Ben.
This is Ben. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Yeah.
We can hear you.
Do you want me to stop share, Ben, and you can, however you want to do it. I can stop share and you can share the screen, or I can continue sharing.
I can share my screen if that's probably the best thing to do.
Sure. Okay, I just stopped sharing, so whenever you're ready, you can put it up.
All right. Okay. I believe I'm sharing my screen now.
You are.
Can you see the plan?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Ben Wallman, here from Horsley Witten Group, representing the applicant Anne-Marie Peters on this proposed septic system upgrades at 706 Old Barnstable Road. This is approximately 1 acre lot in western Mashpee, and it lies on the southern side of Old Barnstable Road, and it sits just east of Childs River, and you can see the river over here. This blue line here is the mean annual high water, and the green line here is the top of bank. The proposed project for the septic upgrades includes removal and disconnection and abandonment of old septic components, which is the existing tank will be pumped and removed. The existing leach pit and D-box will be pumped and abandoned. And there is an existing connection from the old septic tank to this 1-bedroom structure to the south, which will be disconnected and capped as part of this project as well. And then, of course, to install the new septic system components as shown on the plans. And the reason this is required is because the old septic system failed inspection in 2020, and so they need to install new components in order to meet the Title V regulatory requirements. The project will take place within the 100 to 200 foot riverfront area, and so you can see the 100 foot boundary right here, and then here's the 200 foot, and the proposed project occurring within that outer area of the riverfront. The closest portion of the project where disturbance will occur is 160 feet away from the resource area here. You can see it will involve 3,500 square foot of disturbance within that 100 to 200 foot area. But all of these impacts will be temporary, and everything will be restored to existing conditions once the work is completed. There will be erosion and sedimentation controls installed prior to any work taking place in the form of silt sock. And with that, I will open it up to any questions that the commission has.
Drew?
I'll just have Caitlin read comments from Board of Health and Building.
Building has no comments. Board of Health states that the property is in a zone 2 and serviced by potable water. It is restricted to 4 bedrooms with a conventional system. Primary and accessory dwellings currently have a combined 5 bedrooms. Design plans for a 4-bedroom system are pending BOH review. Upon verification by Health and Building that privacy in one of the bedrooms in the main dwelling has been eliminated. I also just had a question. Was it just the 2 trees that are slated for removal for the septic system upgrade?
Correct. Yeah. So these 2 trees right here, which both lie outside of the 200-foot buffer.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
And Ben, do we know if Board of Health has scheduled that inspection yet, or is that still forthcoming? Interior bedroom
It's still yet to be scheduled.
Okay.
is my understanding.
The homeowner is aware, I would assume, right?
Correct, yes.
No other comments?
Caitlin, is anyone waiting to from the public on this?
No.
Commissioners? Any comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Move for next presentation in regards to the application of Anne Marie Peters of 6 Old Barnstable Road, upgraded septic system.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Voting, Paul,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Brian, and I'll vote
Yes.
Brian. Sorry,
Okay.
Brian, and I'll vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you. I'm calling the 621 hearing for Anthony C.
What, just one moment, Tom, before you call the meeting, if Brian can just stop screen share so I can bring mine up. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, 621 here for Anthony G. Cardillo and Kathleen Cardillo, trustees, 5 Pond Street, proposed septic system upgrade, hardscaping, landscaping modifications. Representing them is Coastal Engineering. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
John Knivel,
Please go ahead.
There, okay. Make sure I'm muted. Okay. I don't know if Anthony is also on the call, but he is now the owner of the property. Well, his parents, his family owned the property, and he had bought it. And he is now looking to, since it has a cesspool, to upgrade to a Title V system. And so we've designed one. You see it on our plan. In doing so, we're going to replace the cesspool. We're going to, again, put a Title V system in. It's going to, because we're in the floodplain, we got some groundwater issues. So what we've done is actually put the system farthest to the east, on the east line, because that's the highest point. And that's also where we put the septic tank and the pump chamber. And they're going to be under the existing driveway. And we've actually kind of expanded that a little bit to, right now it's kind of a narrow driveway. Basically, it's just for 2 cars. And he has family that, so he needs a little more space. So we've extended that parking area a little bit. And again, it's just, it meets all Title V requirements. There are a couple of minor setbacks to the cellar wall that we are going to request from the Board of Health. And we're going to have an area of a little over 1,000 square feet on the left side, the west side of the property. We'll keep that as a natural area. And we're going to change out the deck to a patio. And I think that's it. I mean, it's really pretty standard project. There's really no water body nearby or wetlands. They're about 300 feet away. So it's mainly the reason we're here is because, again, we're in the floodplain. And so we're going to have to, again, upgrade from a cesspool to a septic system, a Title V system. It meets the 5-foot separation. And that's about it. I mean, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Hey, Drew.
Do you want to ask him?
Hi, yes. Is the proposed driveway going to be made of impervious material, or is it proposed to be paved?
It's kind of in two. Yes, right now it's impervious. The one on the easterly side there, and we're going to make that paved also. We have
a catch basin in that corner in order to take any runoff for that, so it actually will stay, on the property. We also do have another catch basin in back, just in case, to make sure that we don't have any problem with the neighbor in back as far as any runoff. We got to do, even though it's kind of the high point where we put the leaching system, we do have to do some fill there to kind of get it to work right, and then we want to make sure that it will be, parts of it will be a little higher than the house dwelling in back, and so we're looking to put a catch basin in back also to provide capture of any surface runoff on the property.
Okay, thanks.
Good. So just to go over some of the details on the project, on the site, this is I'll go back to the GIS image. This is a landlocked lot within land subject to coastal storm flow. It is more than 100 feet away from any BBW or land under water bodies and waterways associated with Dean's Pond. So the only jurisdiction is land subject to coastal storm flow. The lot does exceed 5,000 square feet, so there is a retention of 10% under Regulation 25 of vegetation to remain. Going back to the plan, that's this cross-hatched area here to meet that standard. To show you some images of the site, top left, looking at it from facing the property from the road. You've got these two trees here that are slated for removal. These three here. You can see they're presenting a hazard to the utility wires, and this tree is already starting to have root exposure, and it is leaning directly towards the house. So even if it wasn't part of this plan for the crushed stone area, it would need to be removed anyway. Looking at the driveway on the top right photo, this tree is slated to come out for the expanded driveway area here. That's that tree right there. It's more of a landscape tree than a natural feature on the lot. This tree here, larger pitch pine, is slated to remain. That is not to be removed. And then all this vegetation on the side of the lot, that's this cross-hatched area here. Going back and looking at the backyard. The backyard has a few trees, a couple of cedars, pitch pines, and a dead oak. So looking at the backyard, this is a shot of where the leach field is going. There's the staking. You can see this tree here, which is on the backside over here. This is entirely dead. So that's coming out, and this pitch pine also coming out because it's within the area of the leach field. But despite the tree removals, there is, looks like almost in excess of 10% of the lot that will be remaining in a naturally vegetated state. So it meets the performance standards under Regulation 25, land subject to coastal storm flowage, landlocked lots in terms of vegetation retention. I don't think I have any other comments.
I'll just read the Board of Health comments into record. The property is in Zone 2 and is restricted to existing bedroom count with the conventional system. Requires inspection by a health agent to determine existing bedroom count. No design plans have been submitted for Board of Health review or approval.
I did have one other comment just for the property owner, Anthony. We do just want to make it aware that if there's anything planned on this property above and beyond what we see here, such as any other landscaping, fencing, something to that effect, it has to be presented to the commission. Any sort of work on this property must receive Concom approval, so I just want to relay that to the homeowner, that if there's a feature on this plan that hasn't been presented that's proposed, it needs to be made known. If not, then the commission will approve exactly what's presented here and nothing above and beyond that.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe years down the road he might be doing something, but.
Okay.
I do also have an abutter comment to read into record. This is from Sigmund J. Karash. We live at 11 Pond Street, and I had the opportunity to view the engineering plan. It looks like they're expanding their driveway, and we are happy to see that, as there have been large vehicles and trucks parked in their front yard just next to and parallel to Pond Street pointing towards our home. My concern is that the proposed crushed stone surface may also be used as a parking area, as that area currently is used for this, and the potential hazards with continuing this practice. Often there are many small children playing on our street from owners and renters. As we are including visitors park in the dead-end part of the street on Pond, the only way out of their vehicles is to back down our street where children are frequently playing to get to Shore Drive. As a pediatric emergency physician, I can assure you this is an accident waiting to happen. It would be difficult to see these kids backing up trucks and other vehicles that are parked there, as children are often playing, biking, and running all over. We are constantly watching for this just pulling out of our own driveway. I cannot tell you the number of tragedies among children I have cared for over 30 years of practice where such incidences have occurred that could have been avoided. While I have no issue with the crushed stone surface, I think it would be an important safety issue to have assurances from them that they will use their driveway for parking and not this area, so they can turn their vehicles facing outward towards Shore Drive and allow them to view the environment and avoid such accidents.
So I did communicate with the homeowner from 11 Pond Street who submitted that comment, and that not to be dismissive of safety concerns, but that's really a matter to be discussed amongst the neighbors in terms of safety when it comes to kids running around and any sort of, relation to this particular project. The project should be evaluated on its environmental basis. And the gentleman understands that, but we did tell him we would read his comments in for the record. And it would be a good thing just for the homeowner to be aware of and maybe have that discussion with the neighbors. But it's really not the commission's purview.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments on this project? Hearing none, would someone make a motion?
Move for negative determination in regards to the application of Anthony G. Cardillo III and Kathleen M. Cardillo, trustees at 5 Bond Street for a new septic system.
There is a second, please.
I will second that.
Thank you, Paul. Voting, Paul?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. Thank you. The project passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
All right, I'd like to call the 6-4 hearing for Lori and Joseph Manzanilli, 18 Wilson Grove, proposed demolition and reconstruction of a single-family home representing as BSS Design. Is there a representative from BSS Design, Tom Bunker?
Yes.
Yep.
If you go ahead, thank you.
Yep, I'm coming on now. Drew, if I could share my screen.
Sure, I'll stop sharing, Tom.
If that's all right with you?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'll just start here with the Google view just to show you where. Oops, hold on. To show you where we're talking about. 18 Wilson's Grove is down here. It's about halfway between Shore Drive and Nantucket Sound. There, you see the closely packed houses. This property right here has a little house on it and a shed in the back there. I can get down to our plan now. Actually, before I do that, I have a couple pictures I can show. Take you for a tour around the house. Here's on the right-hand side is the house. There's another view for it with a lot line staked down the right-hand side. And looking down the right, this area here, this is in a flood zone. And so these two walls here, stone walls, are the only parts of the lot which slope steep enough to be considered a coastal bank. back at the Wilson's Grove, little patio in the front. Again, here there is a drain that was put in. This was done at the time. There's a septic upgrade put in the higher part on the lot, and at that time this little leaching chamber was put in. You see in the background, that's basically the only vegetation on the lot. That's a holly tree. There's the shed in the back. Looking back toward Wilson's Grove, these arborvitae are on the abutting property. You can see that that property is about 2 feet higher than this property. And yep, there's the holly tree. It's like 18-inch diameter American holly, and that's the pretty much the only vegetation. It's the only natural vegetation on the property. Yeah, it's just another view of there. Get this up. So the existing conditions, as you saw in the pictures and all, we have just this one house here, and the entire lot, as I say, is in the flood zone. This is the two little walls right here and here. These are the steepest parts on the lot, which steep enough to be considered coastal bank, but as I said in my narrative, I don't think they really could be. They're certainly not functioning as any coastal bank. They're about 300 feet away from the ocean. This is a septic upgrade that was done some time ago in the back. We have a limit of work here going along the lot line and protecting the holly tree. And of course, the septic system is to remain and be protected during this work. The shed is coming out. The house will come out. And then a new house is to be put in. As the shed is coming out, that's going to be lawn now. The coverage by structures is actually decreasing by 20-some square feet. And it's actually narrower on the lot. So the setback on the left is roughly 12 feet, and it's 12 feet here. Setback on the right side is only 2.3 or 2.5 feet on the right-hand side. That's being expanded to 5.5 feet, and in the back 7.5 feet or 7 feet. And so we're putting a gravel driveway up the same side that it is now, but it'll be deeper to afford a little bit more parking. And a H20 leaching chamber underneath for the roof runoff, and a little drain inlet in the driveway to take in any stormwater runoff from the driveway itself. And so this driveway will be filled and sloped up because the proposed house is to be above the flood zone. So the floor will be at elevation 14.1, and there'll be just a crawl space beneath it. Down at 8.5, and you can see the outline of the existing house dashed through here, and so this is where the new house will open up some area. So we're putting a larger stormwater leaching system here, which will be for downspouts from the front and the back going onto this side. That will it's kind of a problem low area because the next door house also shares that low area. And so this is to be graded away from the lot line slightly. And as I said, it's a larger leaching capacity than what is on the site now. And the house, as I said, is a slightly smaller coverage. And so that's the proposal, and my understanding of the Regulation 25 is to retain native vegetation, and I said there really is no native vegetation except for this 18-inch holly, and really no room for vegetation except lawn anyway. If you wanted, if the regulation is something different, we can put some vegetation in, but this is the project. I will stop my share, and I know Drew always has some pictures to put on there, so I'll take this down and turn it over to Drew.
Yep. I'm just going over to go back to the PowerPoint for a minute. Tom had shown the pictures of the site already, but these are some additional. So obviously, it's a very small lot. And this is flood zone. It's actually the lot size in terms of square footage is below 5,000 square feet. And that's where the start, 5,000 square feet or above, is where our vegetation retention standards begin under Reg 25. So it falls below that threshold. So there is no requirement for retention of vegetation, though I do applaud the effort to save the holly tree, which is really the only piece of existing native vegetation on the lot. I did have a question in regard to when the site, if the commission approves the project, and I do recommend approval to close an issue. And the reason I wanted this brought as a notice of intent is so we can condition runoff, containment, and lawn standards on this property. I do understand that there's no native vegetation, or little to no native vegetation on the property, but still warrants conditioning. And Tom, I don't know if you have the answer to this or not, but in terms of any fill storage during, demolition and construction phases, where is that slated to go? Is there anticipated a lot of fill? And is there like a plan, for containing that or contingency for that? Because it is such a tight lot, so it does have.
I think it's so tight. Anything. I think there'll be. If there's any excess, it will have to be brought off-site. There's no room to stockpile, and I think from the size of that and the small foundation hole, I don't think there's going to be excess because the slab is going to be higher than the grade is now, so there's no real foundation hole to dig, okay. And there will be the driveway is being filled about 1.5 feet higher than it is now. But basically, any excavation will have to be taken off-site. Okay. There's just no room to put it. I couldn't allow, a pile of that to be put, over the septic system, and have that equipment go over the septic system. Okay. So it would have to be removed.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. No other comments? Caitlin will read comments from Building and Board of Health.
Building Department states that the project falls under ZBA jurisdiction 174-17.1, and the Board of Health states that the property is in a Zone 2 and is restricted to existing 3 bedrooms with a conventional system. No design plans have been submitted for Board of Health review approval. Floor plan to be reviewed upon submission to the Building Department. Rodent inspection and asbestos inspection required to meet Board of Health demo permit requirements. I just wanted to confirm too with you, Tom, it says in the plan it'll be a gravel driveway, so it'll be an impervious driveway. Correct?
It'll be you say a pervious driveway. It's gravel, yeah.
Pervious, sorry. Pervious, I'm not using it right. All right, thank you.
All right, anyone from the audience in the waiting room?
Nobody has called in or commented on it.
Nope.
Okay. Any commissioners' comments on this project?
In the interest of time, I won't comment, but I believe that it was about 1958. As a young child, I stayed in this particular cottage. In those days, it was called Dorchester by the Sea. So given those comments, which should not be probably read into the record, I would like to recommend that the application of Laurie and Joseph Mancinelli at 18 Wilson.
Just a second, Brad. Did we have to condition it for the lawn standards?
If you like,
we have to condition it for the lawn standards?
Yes, I would recommend that condition. Yep.
Okay. So if you would be kind enough, Brad, to condition it for our lawn standards.
Okay, so I would move that we close. No, let's see. This is an NOI.
Yep.
We need to close an issue with the conditions to modify the lawn standards so that we can continue to demolish and reconstruct a single-family home. at 18 Wilson Grove.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
On the voting, Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
And Brad?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Good night.
Good night.
So I'd like to call the 627 hearing for Neil and Susan Carolitz, 384 Monomoskoye Road, proposed additions to existing dwelling and landscape modifications, representing Cape and Islands Engineering Authority. Raul?
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lusardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant on this project for 384 Monomoskoye Road. The applicants being Neil and Susan Carolitz. The project at hand is for request for the determination of applicability for proposed modifications to the existing house. What they're proposing to do on the Drew, I don't know if you're going to be sharing the screen, but if you don't have the plan, I could share mine.
Yeah, I got it here. Yeah.
Yeah, so the proposed work is just an addition to the front of the right wing on the house. And the addition is taking place in land subject to coastal stone floors only. There's also a second-story addition to a portion of that wing on the right side to have a second story for the house, but it's occurring within the same footprint of the existing house. There's a portion of that back of the second story that falls within 100 feet of another resource, which is I believe is the BVW 100-foot buffer, but it's roughly 1 foot into that buffer of that BVW. All of the other addition is just taking place within the second floor of the existing development or the front addition away from the resources, an area that's occupying about 5.5 feet by 12.5 feet. Currently, that area is landscaping shrubs. There's a rhododendron, and I believe there's a Andromeda plant species. So those mitigation shrubs are going to be removed for the installation of this addition. The addition is for an elevator to get up to the upper levels of the house. Portion of that addition also includes equipment and some storage. To get into this area, we have to travel over the existing septic system, so we're proposing to protect the septic system, not knowing the condition of the system being if it's H20 or H10. What they do for this case is they put metal plates, like they do on roadway construction, metal plates to protect the system when they're traveling over this area. There's an existing 8-inch holly tree that will have to be removed to just have access to do this construction. And there is an existing 24-inch oak tree that is proposed to have a couple of limbs removed so that they're not hovering over the new addition and the second-story addition. For the addition, we're proposing a new dry well to collect roof runoff, so we're not increasing any surface runoff off of this addition. We believe that the impact on the surface is rather minimum, and it's not occupying any naturally vegetated zones or buffer zones for this project. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Drew? Just to show the commissioner some images of the site, top left here is looking at the property entrance off of Monomoskoye Road. And then this is top right image of the holly tree that's proposed to be removed for access to get into the area of proposed addition, which is bottom left here. You can see these are...
Wait, hang on. Drew, are you sharing your screen? I'm not seeing it.
I'm sorry?
Not seeing you.
Yeah,
Oh, you're not?
Are other people seeing the screen?
You can't see it?
No.
All right, hold on 1 sec.
Everybody else.
Okay, if everyone else can, I'll figure it out.
No, it's not you, Alex. I can see Drew, but I can see the monitor behind him, but nothing's on the screen.
Okay, let me figure this out then.
You just have to go back to share screen, no?
Where is it? Where's share screen?
Go to Zoom meeting?
We don't mind looking at you, Drew, though.
Go to the list of people.
Nice looking mask.
Move it over.
Oh, yeah, okay. We're getting there.
Expand it.
We were going to get through it without a technology glitch. There we go.
Can you see it now? All right. Sorry about that. I held it together for most of the meeting. So top left image here, looking at the property from the road. Top right, this is the holly proposed to be removed for construction access. And bottom left and right, this is the areas of the proposed addition here. So pre-disturbed, legally altered pre-disturbed areas where the addition is going. Going back over to the plan here. This is, you can see, this is the area of proposed addition here. This is the 100-foot buffer from BVW, which is delineated here. So it is just within the portion of the lot, within land subject to coastal storm flow. Even with the removal of the holly, the vegetation retention standards on the lot exceed what would be required under Regulation 25. Which would be 20% of the lot based on the overall square footage. So that already exists. It does not abrogate that performance standard. And I'll turn it over to Caitlin to give you the comments from Board of Health and Building Commissioner.
Building states that the proposed addition meets current setbacks, existing pool and landscaping approved by ZBA variance in 2011. And the Board of Health states that the existing septic system is designed for 4 bedrooms, floor plan to be reviewed upon submission to the building department.
Okay, any commissioners have any comments on this? Can we have a motion to accept this?
I would move that the application of Neil and Susan Karlitz at 384 Monomoskoye Road, a negative determination.
And can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Voting, Paul?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Brian? Yes. And I'll vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you. Over to you, Drew.
Thank you, Ro. Okay, so we just have a couple more items to go over in the pre-post agenda. First item up is the revised meeting calendar, which I hope you all received, and I apologize for the confusion there. I had switched up our normal second and fourth Thursdays for first and third, and that resulted in a 90% conflict with Board of Health. So we went back to the second and fourth Thursdays of every month. And I thank Caitlin for going through the months in the calendar and making the adjustment, which was no easy task. It can be confusing, to say the least. So we do need to take a formal vote of the commission to approve the revised 2022 meeting calendar.
Okay. So can I hear, do we need to make a motion or just a straight vote?
A motion and a second, just like for a regular hearing.
Motion to accept the revised 2022 Conservation Commission meeting calendar. Will someone make a motion to?
That we approve the 2022 revised calendar for the Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Brian. Do we hear a second?
I'll second that.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. Voting, Paul?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'll vote aye as well. Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, just a brief update on a enforcement order that we had issued to the address at 4 Keelan Way. This is in New Seabury. This was an issue dealing with vista pruning, a permit that had been issued, and the homeowner had requested to adjust the view corridor to a different location to be centered around a dock that had been approved by the commission. Prior to that request being accommodated, which we were going to do administratively because they're pretty straightforward type of request, vista pruning had been done already and cleared in an area that wasn't authorized. So we did follow up. We had them engage with hire a consultant, Wayne Tavares of Wet Tech, to get everything into compliance. So he submitted a mitigation planting plan and showing the revised corridor. And based on the enforcement order, that represented substantial compliance. So the mitigation will be put in the spring of this year. But the plan has been submitted and reviewed by staff and approved. Everything looks good with it. It was just an unawareness of the contractor, miscommunication between the contractor and the homeowner. But everything is in compliance with the exception of the planting, which we'll be following up and is required in the enforcement order to be done in the early spring. So just wanted to update the commission on that. And if anyone has any questions about that.
Yeah, Drew, just for your information, the screen share is still up, so I don't know if you want to.
No, I didn't have any images for this, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, seeing no questions, moving on to the Childs River restoration. On this agenda, you see they applied for a certificate of compliance. I conducted the inspection. Everything looks great. They really did an amazing job. And again, if any commissioners haven't been out there to see it, I highly recommend it. It's already unbelievable, the transformation that's taken place out there at the Garner Bogs and over on the Farley side as well, heading into Falmouth on that side of the restoration. So it passed with flying colors. Everything looks great, and highly recommend a field trip out there to check it out if you haven't done so already. Nothing new on the Upper Quashnet, though we should be expecting to see the final conceptual restoration plan soon. And as soon as that gets presented, we'll have Horsey Witten present that at one of our future meetings. Bylaw Review Subcommittee, I did send out some dates. The majority of people can attend on January 12th at 2 p.m. Brad, and we can look at a different date. I would like to get the meeting done before the January 27th meeting so we can finalize the mitigation, amendments to the mitigation regulation and talk about docks and piers as well. So it's up to you. I can send out some new dates, but I know that we got confirmation from Paul, Alex, and Brian. I know, Brad, you had a conflict. So I'll just put it out there for some discussion. What you guys want to do as far as a meeting date on that. Doesn't have to be everybody, and I'm not trying to exclude you, Brad, but I know it's always difficult to try and find time, the available time for everybody in scheduling these meetings. So my recommendation would be to move forward with January 12th at 2 p.m. If that's okay with you, Brad. And it won't be the last meeting that we'll have on this, but just to, get the ball rolling again.
That's fine, Drew.
Okay.
Sorry, but I screwed up on the 12th, so I have a pretty important commitment on that date.
No worries, no worries. So I'll get the Zoom link for that, and I'll send it out to everybody in preparation for that meeting. And I appreciate the responses. John's Pond milfoil. So I believe I had forwarded the final surveying and summary report to all the commissioners about the treatment of John's milfoil on John's Pond. We will engage the same consultant in the springtime to do a survey again, a follow-up survey to see if there's any regrowth. Hopefully not, fingers crossed. In the meantime, Department of Natural Resources detected milfoil infestation on Santua Pond. So I will be drafting an article for the Springtown meeting to request $35,000 in funding to address the remaining milfoil treatment surveying on John's Pond, and if there is, assuming there might be additional treatment, and full surveying and treatment permitting for Santua Pond. And Mashpee-Wakeby Pond, there is an article for funding to do a diagnostic study on Mashpee-Wakeby, so part of that diagnostic study is to survey the pond for invasive species. So that will cover the Great Ponds in Mashpee. The only one that isn't covered by this is Ashumet, and I may amend that article to include funding for Schumett for a survey as well, just to make sure that it is free of invasive aquatic vegetation. And that way we'll have all of our great ponds covered for this type of situation. So and I'll hand it over to Caitlin to update on Chopjake.
We are moving into the second phase where we will be hiring a consultant to take the project to a final design. We need to have it approved by town council and proceed from there. There will be a third phase for the actual construction of the project.
Now, I'd like to thank Caitlin for continuing to keep this moving. In case the commissioner isn't, any commissioners aren't aware, we received just over $500,000 in funding from the in lieu fee program for the restoration of the Chopjake Bog. So that's a huge grant opportunity that we successfully applied for, and Caitlin had a large part to do with that. So my hat's off to her and all the effort put in for this really great grant opportunity that we got for Chopjake. So looking forward to that coming to fruition. And just one last comment before the meeting ends is that we didn't have time to put on the agenda a vote for a certificate of authorization, which we had in place for signing of permits. As you all may recall, the certificate of authorization was done to designate the chairman and vice chairman signatures for all remote meetings, so you wouldn't have to come in and sign back when we were doing remote meetings previously. We have to do that again if we're going to continue these remote meetings. Otherwise, you have to come in and physically sign at some point. And we are asking you to do that for this meeting because we didn't have time to take that vote. So just to put it out there, and we'll follow up with each of you, we're going to need your signatures, whether you come into the office or we come to you, whatever you feel safest with, to get your signatures on the permits that were approved this evening. Any questions on that?
Do we need to vote on that? Or
You don't, no, we'll have the certificate of authorization vote on the next agenda for January 27th, because I know we have to vote on that again according to state law.
I see.
Yeah. And that's it.
Okay. Can we get a vote, a motion to adjourn?
Before we do that, Drew, the town hall is closed tomorrow, correct? Because of the school. Do you guys follow the school schedule or?
Yeah, we, town hall manager indicated that it's likely to be closed, but he's going to inform all department heads tomorrow morning, prior to the official opening of town halls, to let us know that it's going to be closed. So we're still, it's not confirmed yet.
Okay, I just don't want anybody racing over there to go sign those documents. And
we'll give you we'll give you a heads up on that. Make sure nobody makes a wasted trip.
Hey, can someone vote, make a motion to adjourn?
Would move for adjournment in regards to the meeting of January 6, 2022.
A second, please.
I'll second that.
All right, voting Paul?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good night.